Since I started color grading, I've been obsessed with finding the best possible workflow. I switched to DaVinci Resolve immediately when I started, and ever since I've had my eyes on the micro panel. The perfect integration to truly dive into grading and make it more intuitive than ever. I've had the micro panel for about a month now, and it allows me to take my eyes off the tool that I'm adjusting and looking at the clip itself or the scopes to create my grade rather than adjusting the numbers. It sets my color grading free, and now you have the chance to do the same. Alright, I've had the micro panel for pretty much 1.5 months now and really got the chance to test it out and see how I felt about it. But before we get into it, I just want to say, if you stick around to the end, because I've just hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I decided to do a little giveaway so you have a chance to win your own micro panel and also get free access to my course. So it's worth sticking around to the end to be part of the little competition giveaway that I'm running. But what I wanted to talk about today in this video is my experience with the micro panel from DaVinci Resolve, or from Blackmagic Design, but for DaVinci Resolve, and how it's been feeling to using it for 1.5 months, and if I think it's worth it or not, and why I chose to bring it all the way to Australia from Denmark. First, I want to get into how it feels to use it, and to be honest, I was really surprised about this. It feels a lot more intuitive and a lot more creative to grade with the micro panel. That's simply because it's easy to just dial in while you're looking at the footage, and the panel itself feels really good. It feels very robust, it feels very nice. So the feel of the micro adjustments that you can do and how you can actually go around with it just makes a huge difference in terms of grading, rather than just like taking your mouse and dragging around something or looking at the scopes. Now you have the full capabilities of like going into full screen and really seeing what you're doing and really feeling the grade, rather than what I did before I got the micro panel was pretty much just like a mechanical, I know how to do this, I'm just gonna dial in around the same numbers that I always do, and then it's just gonna look like it always do, or I'm gonna achieve the same result. But this is really allowing me to get or let loose my creativity and really get me into using the panel and grading and really looking at it in a different way. So if we get into the benefits of grading with the micro panel, or with any of the panels I assume, is that it really gets you out of the looking at the controls with your mouse and really, like, normally I would dial in everything and the primaries and the contrast and everything just by putting the numbers in that I usually did with my keyboard, or using the mouse to just drag it around. And you're sure I could still look at the image or the footage itself and see how it's going, or look at the scopes, but I would always have to remove my mouse, whereas now I can actually use it for just looking at the screen or just looking at the scope and dial in the different dials, knowing which dials are which, and then being able to do it. One of the things, or the key things, has been for me to use the lift, gamma and gain, but only the luminance part. So there are actually these 3 dials up in the left corner that lets you just use luminance of these instead of also the saturations or the RGB values, which makes it super easy to just go around your grades and really increase or decrease the contrast or build around with it. You can even do 2 dials at once, which is something you can't do when you're just using your mouse. So that is, for instance, one of the things that I really see a benefit, is that I can put it up in full screen, as I've said a few times now, and I can really dial in and feel my grade. The same thing is that it's easy to jump between clips, jump between notes without having to leave full screen, or at least going between them in an easier way than moving my mouse around all the way over the place and clicking between different things. I also personally feel like I can grade a lot faster now. If I have a longer video, say 1.5 minute edit that I need to do, then how my workflow would be normally would be that I would set everything up and then I would jump between the clips and I would really try to dial in the exposure. And that hasn't really changed, but what I can do now is that I can do my initial color correction, then I can put my grade over the whole timeline, and then I'll jump in between all the clips, having copied my color correction to all the clips. Now I can just jump between the clips and just adjust the balance and the exposure if needed. and I don't have to ever leave full screen. I know that I can just jump between the two first nodes and between the clips, and then just dial in ever so slightly if it's the offset, if it's the lift or the gamma or the gain that I need to adjust, all the highlights of the shadows, all the dials I have available that I can just dial in slowly, and it makes it super fast and efficient for me to grade, but I also get the chance to actually look at the footage and in a big screen, which is important for me because I travel a lot, so I only have my small MacBook screen, 14 inches, so it's not that I have a lot of space to work with. So this makes a huge difference for me in that way. Now, there are a few downsides to using it as well. First up, for me, and this might only be me, it's a quite heavy thing. So moving it around and going to different places with it, it's not really that ideal. Now, it is possible, of course, to move it around still, and it is the micro panel, so it's the smallest of them, but it still has some substantial weight to it, which actually surprised me. I didn't imagine it to be this heavy, but it also makes it feel really premium build and really comfortable to use. But traveling across the world with this thing wasn't the easiest. I'll get to that in a second. Another thing is that this is the micro panel, which means that, of course, it doesn't come with all the features as the mini and the full panel that you have from DaVinci Resolve as well. And it makes sense that it's the lowest price point, so they couldn't include everything in it. One thing that you can do is that when you are in a tone curve, you can't adjust that with any dials, and it's really limited to the primaries, the log wheels, and the HDR wheels for the most part of what you can do. And then, of course, you can switch between clips, but features like adding a new node, being able to adjust the masks and the tone curves would have been something that I would love to see in it. I would love to see that you could bind to different things depending on where you are. So say you jump into the power windows, then you would be able to use some of the tools that are already on the micro panel to do that rather than having to have the mini panel instead. Now, if I had a permanent studio that I was working in always, I would probably have upgraded or opted in for the mini panel instead. But since I'm traveling, I don't really have that option. So it's just something that I have to live with. And until I got the micro panel, I always graded with my mouse. So I'm also used to doing that, and it's not really that big of an issue. It's just a thing to know that if you're getting it, there are some limitations. There are some things that you will still need to do with your mouse and with your keyboard. But aside from that, for the price point and for being the micro panel, I don't really see many downsides to it apart from the weight, which might be specifically for me, and some of the features that are limited. But again, in my opinion, that kind of makes sense. Okay, so I just mentioned that I moved across the world with this thing, and I'm currently in Australia as of recording this video, and I'm only here for 3 months, but I really like the micro panel so much that I wanted to bring it, also because I'm testing it out and I just got it before I left from Denmark, so it wouldn't really make sense to just leave it there. But I really enjoyed it so much that I wanted to bring it along, which became quite a pain because where should I put it? I ended up putting it in my suitcase, and it took up the whole one area almost, and it also added substantial weight to it. Now, I'm not traveling with that much anyway, but it did limit what I could bring aside from this, and of course my clothes and all of the other essentials that I needed. All my camera gear, all my other stuff goes in my backpack, so that was kind of set, but I had to cover it up with all my clothes and kind of make sure that it was as protected as possible, and then just pray that they were taking care of my suitcase throughout the different airports and that nothing happened with it. And luckily it arrived safely in Australia with the rest of my things in the suitcase, so no problems at all. But of course it limits a little bit of what you can bring in terms of weight, but I think that's pretty much just an issue that I have. For most people, they won't be traveling around, and if you are a digital nomad, you probably won't bring a micro panel around with you. I've decided to do so, especially when I am in locations for a longer time. Then it makes sense for me that I can set up a semi-permanent studio and then use it to really improve my grades and really improve my workflow and really make it easier and better to grade. Alright, so I'm not going to go into any technical details about it. I'm sure there are other reviews here on YouTube where you can see reviews and details and much more in depth of how to use it. If you want to see a video on how exactly I use it, I'm happy to do that, and I'm happy to show you how I do my workflow with it. But I just wanted to kind of share my experience with it in this video. So as a last point, I wanted to talk about who I think the micro panel is for. If you are using DaVinci Resolve, which I pretty much assume you are if you're watching this video, I really would recommend, if you're serious about your grading, that you at least consider it, or if you have a chance to test it out somehow, that you do it. It feels so much more natural and intuitive to grade, as I mentioned in the beginning, and it really sets apart for me that I can easily dial in with the big knobs or the big dials, that I can dial in my grade, my look, and I can really feel and twist things around, whereas if I was to do it with my mouse, I would pretty much just touch the RGB channels and move those around as I see fit. But the fact that I can now move multiple things at the same time and dial things in, both in terms of contrast and in terms of look and color and balance, that really makes a difference for me to dial in and get the image looking exactly as I want it to. So whether you're a beginner or more intermediate and you're serious about your color grading, I'll definitely consider looking into it when you can afford it. Of course, it's still a little bit of a punch into your bank account, but to me, it really improves my workflow and really makes it easier, which is also why I brought it across the world. So I highly recommend it. It's not sponsored, this video or anything, so no one has influenced what I'm saying in terms of this. I really just enjoy grading with this panel. And that brings us to the last part, the competition in regards to, or in celebration of, that I've just hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I'm still a little bit mind blown about. It's been around a year since I started taking it more serious, and I'm just really happy that so many of you opt in to subscribe and tag along. So what is this competition? I'm gonna keep it super simple for you. The contest will run for a month from today, so I'll put the end date on the screen here and down in the description as well. The competition runs for you to create a 20 to 30 second video, short, whatever you want it to be. And the main thing carrying out the story has to be the color grading. So the story can be about everything, your morning routine, a run, your office space, whatever it might be. But what needs to carry through the story is the color grading. I want to see that you can balance color. I want to see how you play around with it, how you make a mood, or how you really carry the story forward in terms of what you wanted to tell with the story through the color grading. So that's the goal, that's the idea, that's what you need to do. And of course, the video needs to be sent to me before the deadline. I'll leave down in the description below how you submit it, and then you just need to submit it before the deadline. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, you don't have to be a pro to win. I just want to see how you would try and use color grading to move forward the story and improve the story itself. Along with submitting your video, I also want to hear your vision. So if you can give me a few lines about what your vision for it was, what your color grading choices were, that would help me also get a feeling of exactly what you were trying to do and why you were doing what you did. Now, for the first prize, you can actually win the micro panel itself. And that also includes in the package DaVinci Resolve Studio. So if you don't have that already, that will be included as well. And you will win access to my course, where I teach color grading from all the way from amateur or beginner to having a sturdy workflow that can really improve your videos. Second place will be also access to my course, but unfortunately no micro panel. And third place will be an option to choose any of my LUT packs, just one of them, but free of choice, that you can then get for free. So there will be, and just to mention the first prize, if you want to win the micro panel, you unfortunately have to be based in the US, UK or EU for shipping purposes and everything. That's the only way I can do it. So that's kind of the limitation to winning the first place. But as said, you can also win the course in the second place. So that will not mean that your video was less good, but if you are placed in a different part of the world than the UK, the US or the EU, then unfortunately I can't ship out the micro panel to you. So that's what I wanted to cover in this video. I am extremely excited to see what you do with this little competition, and I hope you want to participate. As said, it doesn't have to be anything big or fancy. I just want to make a little bit fun with giving away a micro panel and celebrating that I hit 10,000 subscribers. So I hope to see you there. Remember to hit subscribe and even hit the bell notification if you want to secure a chance to see if you won, and any future videos on color grading or my experience as a filmmaker. So with all that said, I will catch you in the next one.